I would like to announce that a quorum is present, the meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Dr. Stacy Barker, Dr. Sheila Taylor, Madison Lopez, Michelle Akateb, and Jenny Prosnick. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071, 072, 074, 0821, and 089. The time is 6 p.m. We will now reconvene into open session. The time is 7:07 p.m. Students from Heritage Elementary School will now lead us in our pledges. We have 5th grader Mr. Tay Burton Limbeck and 5th grader Miss Ariana Bort. Come on up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, all with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Join us in the front so I can tell the great people all about you. So here are some fun facts about Tay. Tay enjoys playing football and hanging out with his friends. When asked what he wants to be when he grows up, he said, "When I grow up, I want to be a physicist or something else in the science field. But if not science, I'd be a national park ranger." When asked about his favorite teacher, he said, "My third grade teacher, Miss Cates, and my teacher now, Miss Krim, is also awesome, funny, and has great rules." Here's some fun facts about Ariana. Ariana enjoys swimming, spending time with her family, playing with her 4 cats, wow, and doing arts and crafts. When asked what she wants to be when she grows up, she said, "When I grow up, I want to be a pediatric gastrointestinal doctor." Very specific. When asked about her favorite teacher, she said, "Mrs. Evans. She's been kind, fun, and very helpful in helping me understand math and excel at it." Thank you both. Are your families here? Because I'm pretty sure you didn't drive yourselves. Thank you so much for partnering us with your children's education. Thank you both so much. As you can tell, our boardroom is a little more decorative tonight. And on behalf of the board, we want to thank all the schools that put time, energy, effort, and love into appreciating us. It is an honor to serve a community that values public education. And it is reflected in these posters and in the generous gifts up here for us. And we are appreciative, if you will, of your appreciation, and it is always fun to see this room with a little bit of student color, if you will. I also wanted to invite the community at large to the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration, which will be at Marcus High School's arena at 6 p.m. Next Monday night. It is an absolutely lovely reflection of our students, not only their artistic talents, but just the great community that we have, and it is district-wide, and every part of our district is represented there, and I would highly encourage you to come out. There's always a great speaker who speaks, and in the past they've had part of the I Have a Dream speech redone, which it never gets old because the dream never dies. With that, welcome. The Lewisville ISD Board of Trustees meets monthly to receive reports from staff and take action on recommendations from the superintendent. The board receives the agenda and all supporting documentation 10 days in advance of these regular meetings, which allows us to ask and receive answers to many of our questions. The board also meets regularly scheduled workshops and work sessions where staff discussions and presentations are given for many of the agenda items. This protocol means lengthy discussion or a litany of questions on every agenda item often is not necessary. And as a board, we should have appropriate knowledge and preparation for responses regarding the content of our meeting tonight. So we have some recognitions and student spotlights, but first, I have the honor of reading this month's Recognize Someone's. A parent shared about Ms. Brown at Coyote Ridge Elementary. Ms. Brown has been extremely helpful with all the changes my son has been dealing with this year. For a teacher to take notice of things and act on them for the benefit of the child is amazing. Things like working with him during and after school on topics that are hard for him to grasp, and making classroom changes so that he is comfortable in the setting, etc. The dedication and time that it takes to do these things does not go unnoticed. We are so grateful and fortunate that he gets to have her this year. Well done, Ms. Brown. And a parent shared about Mr. Mears at Flower Mound High School. Mr. Mears has been the most inspiring and admirable teacher my son has ever had. Under his guidance, a shy, quiet boy now presents himself as a confident young man who speaks with conviction and purpose. Debate helped my son find his voice, filled with confidence, curiosity, and courage. We're deeply grateful for Mr. Mears' patience, care, and belief in his students. Thank you for helping him discover his best self and guiding him with wisdom and kindness every step of the way. So well done. Communications is next.
Behind LISD, there are 7 members of the Board of Trustees ensuring our students receive the best education and opportunities.
Elected by LISD voters, our board members are the guiding hands who oversee school policy, curriculum, and expenditures and set the direction for the district's future.
Your policies help create the structures that protect our students and supports their growth.
You dedicate countless hours of your own time because you believe in the power of public education.
Because of you, our schools are filled with the students who are confident, equipped with the knowledge and skills to thrive and adapt for their futures.
To our school board, thank you for choosing Lewisville ISD as your place to serve and for the impact you make each and every day.
So, as Ms. Prosnick acknowledged the wonderful creations in the room, on behalf of School Board Appreciation Month, each January we honor the dedication, commitment, and leadership of school board members across the state of Texas. The theme this January is Our Future is Public. And there's no doubt that the future of our societies, our communities, and our students rest in our public schools in Texas. And we know that you take seriously not only the education of the 47,000 students in the Lewisville ISD, but the over 5.3 million students that are in our public schools. So we say thank you. We appreciate your work, your tireless dedication, and we're so honored that you spend your time to lead the Lewisville Independent School District. Will you please join me this evening in recognizing our wonderful Board of Trustees?
Thank you much for the very kind words. And now we're at the superintendent update, so you're back up.
And I believe I have a special presentation that's being made by our visitors during the superintendent update. So can we go ahead and get the podium over here for them in case they have words that they want to say when I call them up? So in continuing to honor you all as part of our School Board Recognition Month events, we know that our wonderful student leaders from LHS come every January to deliver their recognition in person. So I see the army of you out there, so you're up first. So come on up. I see Connect. Are you coming to speak first? Okay, come on up, and then we'll let you make your presentation to our board, and I know we'd love to get a picture with all of you as well.
Good? Perfect. All right. Good afternoon, LISD Board of Trustees. I'm Kenneth Rodriguez from Lewisville High School, and I am here to simply say thank you. LISD has inspired thousands of students, teachers, and faculty members alike. We truly appreciate the hours you have spent to ensure that Lewisville LISD is a flourishing and thriving community. We know the hundreds of hours you spend away from your families just to ensure that, and for that, we are just simply thank you. And as a token of our appreciation, we would like to give you guys a gift. We have shirts. All right. If we could take a picture, would that be great?
Yes, let's take a picture. Yes.
Perfect, perfect.
None of this happens without one.
Thank you again to our LHS student leaders and to all of our schools for all the hard work on recognizing the dedication and service of our board members. There's no doubt that January allows us time to reflect, and when you look at just a few of these pictures that I have on the screen, there's no way to tell truly and quantify the amount of hours that you all spend out in our community supporting our schools, and as Connect said so beautifully, time away from your own families in order to do this job that is a volunteer service, and we're very appreciative and we're very thankful to your families who share you all with us. Collectively with your leadership, we have programs where students and staff achieve local, state, and national recognition and awards, and we see many of those here on Monday nights throughout the school year. We've been recognized by Forbes as one of only 15 DFW area companies to be on the Best Employers for Company Culture list and have been recognized as a best place to work by Forbes since 1997. We've worked to lower the budget deficit and ensure that our fund balance is stable for achieving strong financial ratings from our rating agencies. We've had successful 2023 and 24 bond elections to ensure our facilities are updated according to our facility assessment document. 95% of our seniors demonstrate college and career readiness. 87% of our third graders read on grade level or met their required skills on their IEP. We've been a 20-time consecutive recipient of excellence in financial reporting. We have a 95% student attendance rate, and we have a 95% parent approval rating of our schools. Thank you for your leadership that has allowed us to achieve. These are just a few of the milestones. I could have gone on and on with many more slides because we report to you all regularly on the long-range plan and the benchmarks that we hold ourselves against. Of course, I know we're also very thankful to the leadership of the LHS Student Council who just left the room. But we thank them for their leadership, for the Adopt an Angel program that really serves our entire school district, and for how all of our student councils under their leadership come together to get donations from our community together as a community. I hope you're all proud. We supported over 3,000 angels with over 2,000 hours of LISD employees shopping for angels, and we had over 1,500 LISD and community hours wrapping and working together to make the Adopt an Angel program be a special program for kids in our community. We saw over $8,000 in toy donations, and we saw over $33,000 in monetary donations. So I know I've updated you several times each month about the Adopt an Angel program, and we're so proud and thank you to our community for all of that work. Y'all know it's important to me every single month to share a little bit just about the connection that I work to build with our students. The month of December was very busy, so many different things to go to. We had many students coming to celebrate their talents here at the administration building. I enjoyed a visit to Lakeland to visit our life skills students there and the learning that they're doing. They had made the candle that you see me holding in that picture and enjoyed hearing about that from them directly. So love being out on campuses with our families and our kids. With staff, of course, every single month, I have lunches with Lori across the district, and I was pleased to be at Kilo there. I was also pleased to visit Caney as the counselor there held their program where families could drop off their kids, and they had an experience where they could experience holiday excitement while the parents could go shop. So that was nice to see that. I enjoyed seeing how Flower Mound High School was appreciating its staff with a pancake breakfast on the last morning before winter break. I see some friends there, campus leaders, of course, so thankful for them. But Miss Burton's, of course, in that picture right there, and she's right there. So, that's fun. And just very thankful, of course, Miss King, thank you. Yes. And Miss Flanders, I know y'all had some fun too at Harmon. But it was also James Scott last day as assistant principal at Flower Mound High School as he was retiring. And one of the joys that I experienced getting to be out on our campuses is just getting to say thank you to our staff. And getting to see James that day and say thank you to him for his service is a memory that I will treasure. So very proud. Emily Brackney, of course, who is a music teacher at Forest Vista. She was their Teacher of the Year for Forest Vista. We got to celebrate her as her choir from Forest Vista sang. Just a quick update on our monthly newsletters. My average combined newsletter click rate is 8.81%. In December, the most clicked links included the calendar, program relocation proposal, and upcoming enrollment information about Skyward Access. And then the wrap-up, of course, which is the staff newsletter, most clicked on were calendar, the employee perks page, the program relocation proposal as well. And then, as Ms. Prosnick, as you shared, Martin Luther King Day, in collaboration with MLK of North Texas, we're very happy to host that event in our school district, and we love seeing our students who have submitted work that go with the theme. The theme this year is Making the Dream a Reality. I know we look forward to our community coming together at that event. And to our businesses in the community, and I know that as you all are at your Rotary and Chamber events each month, you share this as well. We've got Career Out on March 4th, which it's critical our business community allows us to have these learning experiences for students where our juniors and seniors can do a job shadowing opportunity out in the community. And I would be remiss, I'll include this in my newsletter that's coming out this week too, just to remind everybody as it's winter weather season, that if school is canceled, families and staff will be notified via multiple platforms, so please be sure you've got your access right in Skyward. And also if you haven't downloaded LISD's mobile app, this is a great time to do so. Of course, we use phone calls, text, and emails, and then our school district website, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. For the most instantaneous notification, always visiting the district webpage is important. We do try to make the decision by 5 a.m. or earlier the day of, so we post the information on our website and start the automated emails and phone calls about 5:30 a.m. What a lot of people don't realize about winter weather decisions is that those days can often begin at 3 a.m. when you're getting on National Weather Service calls, and you're also getting on, for us, Denton County emergency management calls. And Denton County calls are not the same time of the day. Sometimes it's Dallas County calls. So you may see the Dallas County schools make a decision. Their county call may have been at 10 o'clock in the morning. Our county call may not be until 1 in the afternoon. And it's important for us to participate on those county phone calls, because that's where you get to hear from your cities about what they're seeing with the roads. It's where you get to hear from other Denton County school districts. So I know people often wonder, how does one group of schools make a decision and then another? And those county phone calls are an important part of that decision-making process, and I'll continue to try to explain that to families in my newsletter that goes out this month as well. And with that, Ms. Prosnick, that's the rundown.
Thank you so much. Public comments are next on the agenda. Those who wish to speak at a board meeting often expect a dialogue with the Board of Trustees. However, in accordance with Texas law, the board is not able to respond directly to comments or questions posed by speakers. Texas law also does not allow the board to discuss or take action on any issue presented during the public forum unless the item has already been posted for action on the meeting agenda. Each speaker will receive a written follow-up from the district in the next 3 business days. The board and the district administration welcomes and values the feedback shared during this time of the meeting, and we are grateful for the continued partnership between LISD and the families and the communities we serve. Lewisville ISD stakeholders, meeting current students, parents, employees, and residents of Lewisville ISD, will have up to 3 minutes for their presentation. Please come to the podium as I call your name. Laura Clark.
Good evening, Dr. Rapp and Board of Directors. My name is Laura Clark, and I'm a parent of a high school student in LISD. I appreciate the district's focus on student wellness, including sleep and mental health. However, I am here to respectfully urge you to vote against the proposal to delay the high school start times, because for many families, the real-world consequences would outweigh the intended benefits. A 410 dismissal creates serious challenges for students involved in extracurricular activities. Our athletes, bands, cheer teams, and NJROTC already struggle to reach away games and events on time because of transportation and traffic. A later dismissal will make it even harder for these groups to arrive for opening ceremonies, performances, and competitions. When the band misses the alma mater or struggles to make halftime, the entire school community feels that loss. These activities are not just hobbies. LISD has 3 state-recognized band programs, and they, along with cheer and NJROTC, are central to school pride, leadership development, and district reputation. Under a later dismissal, many of these students would have to be pulled from their 4th period classes just to participate. That means lost instructional time and a weaker academic outcome for some of our most dedicated and high-achieving students. The impact goes beyond school spirit as well. Many of these same students are enrolled in dual credit classes. Those courses have strict attendance requirements, and professors do not have to be as flexible about early dismissals. A later school day would effectively push students out of these college-level opportunities. While working students also will be affected, many high schoolers rely on part-time jobs to support themselves or their families. A 410 dismissal makes it extremely difficult to arrive to work on time, putting jobs and financial stability at risk. Safety is another concern. A later release puts new drivers on the roads during peak rush hour, increasing the risk of accidents for students and our community. Finally, while early middle school drop-offs may seem helpful, earlier pickup times simply shift the burden back onto working parents, and those same families will face the same problems when their children reach high school. These students are not a small group. They are the leaders, performers, athletes, and scholars who give LISD its identity. I respectfully ask the board to protect their opportunities by keeping the current high school start times. Thank you for your time and your commitment to our students.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Keith Diggen.
Good evening. My name is Keith Diggen. I'm here to address the board about the uncertainty surrounding the DAP's relocation to Old Settlers. This feeling of uncertainty is getting all too familiar with my wife and I. 13 months ago in this very room, this board discussed and ultimately decided on the retirement of Garden Ridge Elementary. Before all the talk about campus retirement and possible school closings, our son was in kindergarten at Garden Ridge. We loved the principal, we loved the teachers, and we thought we were set. After the closure this summer, we chose to move to a neighborhood that feeds into Old Settlers. We made this decision based on Old Settlers' outstanding state accountability ratings, including parent surveys. Our new neighbors had nothing but great things to say about the principal and the teachers, and again, we thought we were set. But now here we are again, in the same room, the same familiar faces, and the same uncertainty. If this decision has already been made, we know that Texas law and the guidelines of the TEA require that DAEP be separated and that a sight and sound barrier should exist to provide adequate separation. Obviously, leaving things alone at a separate address and separate location where it currently is already best accomplishes this separation requirement. I want to bring to your attention that most of the surrounding school districts have separate locations for their DAEP locations and do not commingle with a general education campus. These districts include Dallas, Fort Worth, Richardson, Denton, Frisco, McKinney, Irving, Argyle, Grapevine, Colleyville, and Southlake. Why should Lewisville be any different? What's the cost benefits analysis for us to evaluate? Where is that cost benefits analysis? How much money might this actually save? We haven't seen this. And more uncertainty for us, how are we going to meet the sight and sound barrier at Old Settlers? Where will DAEP go? How will you build the sight and sound barrier? Will there be temporary buildings set up? Where? How will the sight and sound barrier be when it comes to bathrooms, nurse's office, cafeteria, fire drills, intruder drills, tornado drills, and other emergencies? Last month's board meeting provided no answers to these questions. The website and the FAQ only provides vague, non-answers, ChatGPT style answers. If this is going to happen, we want to and deserve detailed answers and explanations on how this is going to be carried out. And if you're going to do something that affects our kids and is rather unique to the surrounding area, then you better get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Digin. Jason Martin.
Hello. Good evening, President Prosnick and Superintendent Rapp and the members of the board. I'm speaking in reference to a similar topic, the DAP relocation, and how that is in similar discussion items for your monthly financial report, including bond report as well as the land sale report. These items reflect the district's careful facility investments and budget management amid declining enrollment. The same challenges driving proposed relocation of the elementary DAP program to campuses like Old Settlers Elementary. Again, my name is Jason Martin, and I'm a parent of students at Old Settlers Elementary, and I remain strongly opposed to this relocation. The current Student Success Center, where DAEP operates today, is a dedicated standalone alternative campus not co-located with regular elementary school or neighborhood students. It successfully keeps disciplinary placements separate from young learners in a central, convenient location without altering any nurturing elementary environment. This model works well district-wide. While I appreciate the assurances of separation for a small number of students, up to about 8 at Old Settlers, Texas law can be satisfied with a relatively minimal measures as small as a separate entrance, dedicated staff, alternate scheduling, and essentially a quarantine classroom or two behind a keyed door. While this might meet legal requirements, even the most careful minimal implementation fundamentally changes dedicated nurturing environment that families choose Old Settlers for, especially for our K through 5th graders. My key concerns include safety perception. Even with existing guardians and separation plans, drop-off, pickup, and the overall campus feel will be different knowing a disciplinary program shares the footprint. Stigma and enrollment impact. The risks labeling Old Settlers as a mixed-use school would further hurt enrollment and contradict the district's financial goals in the land sale and bond reports. Suitability for young learners. Our youngest students deserve a campus fully focused on their developmental needs, just like the current SEC preserves separation. Unanswered questions about access to shared resources like the gym, PE, library, music rooms, and even restrooms highlight practical challenges in achieving true separation without overlap risk. I respectfully urge the board to keep elementary DAP in standalone facilities like the current SSC or on a secondary campus consistent with thoughtful facility planning in tonight's bond and financial items. If this proceeds at Old Settlers, many families, including mine, will need to explore transfers to protect the best environment for our children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Jason Waite.
Good evening, LISD School Board, district representatives, and community alike. I want to talk a bit about the high school start time proposed change. Now, my comments are informed by experience as a parent of 5 LISD students, but perhaps a bit more as president-elect of the Hebron Band Booster Club. Now, I'm addressing the impact of this proposed change from the perspective of the Hebron Band, but these complexities are broadly applicable to LISD high school students. Hebron serves more than 3,600 students, as you know well. 10% of that student body is in the band. Now, band is not a fringe activity, nor is theater, choir, orchestra, silver wings, or athletics. These are core instructional programs operating on tightly coordinated schedules involving staff, facilities, transportation, and safety protocols. One conundrum that this proposed change causes is related to marching rehearsal. This probably sounds like it's needlessly detailed, but I do want to talk a bit more about it. Marching rehearsal is currently held in the afternoon. It's possible to move rehearsal from afternoon to morning, but this creates daily safety risk because students would cross active bus lanes during the busiest window of the morning. We must also respect agreements with the community which prohibit music before 7 a.m., limiting the effectiveness of and also the flexibility of morning rehearsal. Transportation equity also matters. Morning rehearsals disadvantage students who rely on district busing and cannot otherwise arrive early on a consistent basis. If rehearsal is to remain after school, it must be pushed later into the evening, exposing students to low light conditions during much of the fall. Without expanded field lighting, this raises safety concerns, and with lighting, it introduces cost issues. If we set rehearsal aside, instructional time loss is a significant concern because later dismissal increases the amount of class time missed for away games, competitions, and other events. What is currently limited to part of one class period would be expanded and could even affect additional class periods. And this would not only affect band, but athletics and other fine arts programs as well. This flipped schedule also disadvantages students who work after school, as Ms. Clark mentioned, or provide childcare for siblings. A 4:15 dismissal effectively eliminates access to many of the common after-school job shifts. There are also practical challenges related to the school itself. Hebron requires 4 lunch periods to serve its enrollment. Under a flipped model, lunch for some students would not begin until well after 2 p.m., placing meals uncomfortably close to the end of the instructional day. Other complications include facility access management. Do we push events even later into the evening? This creates competition for access to shared resources, which is already complicated by, as you know, some of the delayed renovations. Also, I added a note here. Buses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Charles Riska? Do not know if he arrived. All right. Thank you to all of our speakers. Next up, the consent items. Is there an item administration would like to address? Dr. Rapp.
Yes, Madam President, administration would like to pull item 5B1, and we will bring that back at a later time for consideration.
Are there any other items to be pulled? Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Sells.
Madam President, I move that the board approve the consent agenda items as recommended by administration with the exception of the following item pulled by administration, item 5(1)B.
Is there a second? Dr. Barker? All those in favor?
Madam President?
Yes.
That was Ms. Bay. Hi. I think there's a typo on that item. It is 5B1.
5B1.
And I will...
Ms. Sells, would you please read your motion?
I will reread the motion. I move that the board approve the consent agenda items as recommended by administration with the exception of the following item pulled by administration, item 5B1.
Thank you. Second, Dr. Barker. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. The vote carries 7-0. Next up is our information items, the monthly technology report. Dr. Garicani.
Good evening, Board, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and trustees. The monthly technology report covers the period of November 1st, 2025 through November 30th. On page one, the 2017 technology program bond funds are $96.7 million spent with $4.85 million remaining. For I-fees, the revenue is $725,000. Cumulative expenses for this fiscal year through November 30th is now at $75,000, leaving a balance of $3.4 million in the I-fee fund. Regarding the average age of devices for pre-K through third grade, it increased by 1 month to 1 year and 7 months from the last month's reporting, And the average age of devices for grades 4 through 12 increased by 1 month to 1 year and 10 months. And finally, for staff devices, we have now hit the 2-year marker on staff devices. On page 2 of your report, the opt-in percentage for the program is 98.62% for students in grades 4 through 12. And finally, for the month of November, we see average monthly bandwidth per student was down slightly, yet remains above prior years. Average daily bandwidth per student while on campus continues to be consistent with data that we've seen in the past. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Are there any questions or comments for Dr. Garicani? Thank you so much, Dr. Garicani.
Thank you.
Next up is our discussion items. First up is the monthly financial report, including the bond report, land sale report, and the monthly investment summary. Mr. Ware.
Good evening. The monthly financial reports that begin on page 73 of the board book are for the month ended November 30th, 2025. I just want to highlight on a few of the items in the monthly financials. The first one is on the general fund. Through November, we've received 19% of our revenue, while we've expended 24% of our budget. And just as a reminder that that's typical throughout the year, as we don't start receiving the majority of our tax payments until December and January. One thing I did want to highlight on the general fund is through November, we've spent about 24% of our payroll budget. So currently, we're forecasting to be about $5.2 million savings on our payroll budget for the year. Then on the Child Nutrition Fund, through November, we're looking at a surplus of about $770,000. On the 2017 bond summary report, we currently have an available balance of $19.9 million. And then the last item that I wanted to highlight is on the monthly investment report. For November, we had interest earnings of $3.5 million, and our average yield for the month was just over 4%, about 4.1%, which exceeds our benchmark, which is the 180-day Treasury bill yield. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Ware? All right, moving on. The employee compensation considerations. Ms. Cobb.
Thank you, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and Board of Trustees. We come to you tonight to talk through our compensation considerations. We're doing a kind of a three-prong approach tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rapp. He'll start. I'll do a little bit in the middle, and then we have Mr. Chafin, our Director of Compensation, here to talk through the end of it. All right, so I'll turn it back over to Dr. Rapp.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. So I want to just follow back up, first of all, with information from a follow-up that you all are owed from a presentation we made on August 25th of 2025. At that presentation, we shared market rate adjustment considerations and HB2 issues resulting in salary compression. And then I'll hand it back over to Ms. Cobb for fiscal year 20, to start talking about fiscal year 27. So if you'll recall from August 25, we said we would monitor fiscal year 26 budget revenue for potential to address pay compression resulting from House Bill 2, those identified positions that are below the market and would need consideration for market rate adjustments, along with some stipends that were below the market that you all had asked us to review as well. We would create a phase-in plan for those recommendations, and then depending on fiscal year 27, you can also consider at that time a district-wide market study as well. So in August, we talked about the situation created by House Bill 2, where salary compression was resulting with positions that were not included in those raises from the legislature because there are positions that do not meet the definition of teacher according to TEA. And of course, all of this transpired after we had already started, we'd already passed raises and we're getting ready to start the school year. People in this position are non-classroom professionals, librarians, campus testing coordinators, nurses, athletic trainers, as an example, instructional coaches, counselor, diagnosticians, therapists, psychologists, and assistant principals. So you've got a mixture of things going on with some staff who were used to getting the same type of raise on the teacher pay schedule, and then you've got others where there's compression, where if a teacher promotes into some of these positions, there won't be a lot of options there for Mr. Chafin as he works on salaries. So pay compression impacts future promotions. In August, we went through a few of those examples. We gave you an example of a veteran 5+ year teacher that promoted promoted to another professional type position, maybe a facilitator or an instructional coach. That person comes in at $2,925 above the existing incumbents in that position, or you have to reduce their salary by $2,925 in order to, prior to some kind of promotional methodology being applied by Mr. Chafin. Let's say you have a classroom teacher that is finished 3 to 4 years and they promote to an elementary assistant principal. They're going to come in at $425 above existing assistant principals right now who are out there doing the work, or we're going to have to reduce their salary prior to that promotional increase being applied. So those are just some of the situations created by House Bill 2 with pay compression. As Mr. Chafin, I very much appreciate his work on so much of the information you're going to hear tonight in this presentation. If you want to address the librarians, nurses, athletic trainers, and other positions that have previously gotten the same amount of raise as others on the teacher pay scale, that will cost you $790,000. Counselors, diags, therapists, psychologists will cost you $820,000. Campus leadership, as we deal with that compression, would cost you $240,000. So your grand total for addressing House Bill 2 situations that were not created by all of you, again, I want to reiterate that, but created by the fact that specific positions were carved out by the legislature rather than really addressing the basic allotment. That's the first time we've seen that methodology from the legislature. That cost to the district to adjust these positions would be $1.8 million. This dollar figure is a little bit lower than what you saw in August, because since you passed a 3% of the midpoint raise, it's going to take a little bit less money in order to address some of these situations. There were positions that were below 95% of the market in various departments. You can see those listed on the screen. And then the other thing that we talked about with stipends was, could we also, in addition to reviewing stipends that were below the market, could we look at stipends as a way to address some school improvement strategies? And as we've been meeting with TEA about turnaround plans, targeted improvement plans, we do see there are other local districts who are giving $10,000 to $15,000 for principals who get their school out of school improvement as a recruitment or retention tool. We also see where campus personnel could receive a stipend over 2 years if they improve a low school state accountability rating. So one proposal you all could consider is an approach where across 2 years a campus principal would get $20,000, assistant principal would get $16,000, and then if you move from an F rating to a C rating or higher, maybe $8,000 for professional staff, $3,000 for instructional support. You could see a proposal there for if you move from an F to a D rating. Again, we know the DFW market is a very competitive market, and so you're constantly trying to come up with ideas that will recruit staff to work in schools that are often not very successful in the state accountability system, which we do not create again, and frankly do not agree with the structure of, and it will be changing again in 27-28. So that's what's so interesting about state accountability ratings. And I always say to the community, if you want to understand how your school is rated, an A, B, C, D, or F, it's a 271-page manual that will help explain that. That's not transparent, frankly. So, but there is an idea board about a way you could differentiate a strategy for pay for school improvement situations. So a phase-in plan that you could consider for this fiscal year with market adjustments and House Bill 2 compression. For fiscal year 26, if you addressed compression, you addressed the master's stipend that was below the market, you addressed positions that were below the market, you raised that bilingual stipend to $4,000 because it was below the market, and you could also consider a dual language partner stipend for ESL teachers, as we're having a hard time recruiting staff to teach in our bilingual programs. That grand total would be $3 million. And of course, that is an ongoing commitment. So that $3 million would have to be carried forward into fiscal year 27 as well. Another interesting situation with House Bill 2 to consider is there were paras where when Mr. Chafin looks at their salary and they promote to a teacher, they're now a certified teacher, we give them a certain number of years of service credit for their time as a para. That service credit is not being included by TEA in determining what amount of teacher retention allotment they could qualify for. So they may have gotten a letter because, again, the rules were not around yet or established when it was time to address pay raises. They may have gotten a letter saying they were going to get a $2,500 amount as a 3 to 4 year teacher or a $5,000 amount as a 5-year plus teacher, and now they don't have the years of service to qualify for the teacher retention allotment from the legislature. If you would like to address the people in that situation to maintain the salary raise that we thought they were going to get in the teacher retention allotment, that would be $725,000. In fiscal year 27, you could finish some additional market rate adjustments. You could address safety and security positions that are below 95% of the market, and that grand total would be $1.8 million. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Cobb. We will be following up with you all about the outlook for fiscal year 26 as you look to address some of these positions. We'll be back with another budget and compensation update in February so you can see where things stand and if you would be able to address these things in fiscal year 26.
So as Dr. Rapp said, we're moving forward with looking at fiscal year 27 and what we could potentially do to salaries in that time frame. And as we recall, we've talked to you about this previously, we compare ourselves, the district, and what we offer to our market group. So this is just a reminder about what our market group is. We are the 4th largest district in our 20 district market group. We enrollment, and you can see the districts there that have an enrollment greater than 45,000. So we compare ourselves to Frisco, Garland, Plano, and Lewisville district, and then we've got the ones that are in our market group that have an enrollment of 25,000 to 45,000. You can see it's much greater. Mesquite, Richardson, Mansfield, CFB, Denton, Northwest, Irving, and Grand Prairie. Districts less than 25,000 that are considered part of our market group: McKinney, HEB, Birdville, Allen, Grapevine, Capel, and Carroll. What's interesting with this is it's very unique that we're compared to a lot of those districts, because in the smaller districts, they're a little bit more competitive, and I talk about this on the next slide. They are a little bit more competitive because they may have, like Capel has 1 high school. So they can offer a greater salary, a differing salary for their high school principal as compared to us where we've got 5 high school principals and things like that. So of the 20 market group, they're the ones that are most competitive. The things we look at: geographical boundaries, employees leaving LISD, employees coming to LISD, and then of course the district size. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Chafin, if he wants to come to the podium, and he's going to talk through the different scenarios that we have tentatively put together for consideration for fiscal year 27. So.
Good evening, Board. The put together here 4 different options to give us a view of what teachers would receive based on their years over the 2-year period in the biennium. There's first option here is kind of a baseline that would determine if there were no salary increases that were given from the district. As you can see there, the first year teacher received their pay increase last year of $2,075. That's people that would be entering their first year, so they were new hires last year. So over the course of those 2 years, they would have gotten a 3% increase, which would be correct for 1 year of service during those 2 years. The next one would be those that are entering their second year. They would have received the $2,075 last year. If the district were to give a 3% of the midpoint raise to this group, it would be about $2,095. So over the course of the 2 years, they would have received $4,170. The third year, similar situation. And in the fourth year is where we see an issue in that they've received their $2,500 from the TRA, which is all the district's required to give at that year of service. So if there were not a district increase going to those individuals, it would actually put that pay step, if you will, below step 3. So as you look across from there at the other options, that was putting some options there if you do decide to put some type of increase in there, what that might be. The 5th year employees, they received $2,500 last year because they were year 4. This year they will receive another $2,500. That will all be TRA funded. and then that will bring them to a 7.2% across the 2 years. The 6th year, they received their they received their $5,000 last year. So they have reached their max of what they received through TRA. What we've done here is moving over to option 3 on those 6+ years. Let's say you don't give the entire pay increase to try to balance out those percentage increases over the 2 years. If you were to give, for instance, under option 3, a $500 raise, it would bring their percentage up a bit. Or if you were just give them a $1,000 raise, it would bring it up a little bit. So those are just some various options that you can look and see kind of how that would give you a 2-year reign of what their increases were. The next one is pretty much, it is the same options. We first of all make a general target that a new hire salary, we try to target between about $350 to $400 less than the first year salary. So by giving that increase to the first year people, 3% would be at $2,095 approximately. So we would just lower by about $350 to $400 that starting rate. So this comes through and tells us basically the same thing of what those increases would be or what the cost to the district would be. Option 1 would be not giving increases, would cost about $450,000 for those first 2 years. And then you can see across the board each option and what those costs would be based on the information there. So the total salary raise of those 4 options, and these are 4 options of 4 options, if you will, a 1% increase for the district would then, down in the second line of all other employees, cost $2.1 million. That added to whichever option you may choose for teachers then brings that total down there under each of those options for the grand total. And then each column indicates if it's a 1, 2, or 3% of the midpoint increase. Happy to entertain any questions you might have.
And with that, any questions you may have.
Dr. Barker. I have so many thoughts. My first has to do with a conversation that I actually had at work last Friday, just recently. That compensation has become so complex by law that we are recommending that every district have a compensation specialist whose sole job is figuring these things out. So Tim, thank you so much for all of your hard work because it's making these local decisions is not easy. I've said it before and I'll say it again, educating kids takes all of our staff. We have continued to right size as we've needed to for declining enrollment, but we cannot right size out of needing strong administrators who lead our campuses, out of needing librarians to foster a love of reading in our students, to have counselors to be able to manage schedules, but also manage the health and well-being of our students. We need diagnosticians, which, by the way, there's a statewide shortage of, so well done leaving them out of a retention allotment. That puts us behind in our evaluation timelines. We're seeing the effect of that. My biggest concern is fiscal year 27. Fiscal year 26, we have disaster pennies that will help cover many of the costs that we are discussing for fiscal year 26. Fiscal year 27, the disaster pennies go away. So that means a reduction, again, in our budget, along with upcoming reductions due to declining enrollment. And whatever decision that we make only continues to get more expensive, as it should, right? Inflation goes up. We don't want another situation where our administrators and our staff had a reduction in pay because we weren't able to give a raise and insurance went up because of inflation. So all of that being said, I'm very much an Episcopalian in this way. I think we have to find a middle way where we can provide reasonable increases in staff salary. I wish I could give so much more, but I'm looking at that cliff in 27. So I don't see option 4 as a possibility. I just don't. I'm sitting between option 2 and option 3. The one other thing that I'll say is you brought up accountability with the campus improvement stipends as an option. I'm a much stronger proponent. Yeah, I mean, you heard me rant about TIA. Was that just last month? So I'm much more in favor of a campus-wide incentive program for something like improvement. And here's one of the reasons why I say that is because of the way that our accountability system is structured. If you really want to have something that'll put you to sleep, you can go read my dissertation about the relationship between accountability and poverty. Anyway, most of our accountability system is so tied to challenges that are outside of the school's concern, such as poverty and language. And those things often require more resources, which often ends up being time of our staff. So it's a way of compensating our staff for the extra time and effort it takes to deal with those challenges. So that's my rationale behind that. So no questions, just thoughts and my expression of where I stand currently on all of this.
Ms. Bells? I just want confirmation. These stipends are treated by TRS as stipends that we have now, that they do go against or go toward their retirement?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to verify that. I concur. I am sad every year when we look at this, and I believe other than a year, 1 or 2 years, 3% is our cap. In every other industry that I've ever worked in, even at the city level, 3% was the starting. And so it saddens me. It saddens me that that even after discussions, which I felt like were fruitful and across the board, this board that's happened, that there is still delineation of those positions on our campuses. I will tell you that both of my kids needed SPED intervention for different things at different times. Without a diagnostician, those things would not have been discoverable. Without somebody there to direct where we were going with my children, I don't know, it would have affected where they are today. Absolutely. Now, we love their teachers, we love their principals, but there was no separation. They worked as a team. And you cannot separate those people out. And it just saddens me that we have a group of legislators that don't seem to see the benefit of those on our campus. And so, but again, we're where we are. And I'm too afraid of 27. And, but yet I fall between that 2 and 3. So.
Dr. Taylor.
I'll just weigh in as well. I really think
this board is afraid about 2027 because, as my colleague mentioned, the lack of those pennies. Also, when you're looking at raises, and people may know this or they may not, you're not talking about 1 year. So when you put a raise in there, it affects your future budgets, which makes you, or would make one in this situation, a fan of one-time adjustments over raises. But then you have the TRS issue. I think we can all agree, I think we have this conversation every year, that our educators, along with the partners, that are in the school that have been mentioned, the diagnosticians, the principals, the admin staff, librarians, they all deserve raises. They deserve to be fairly compensated because they are educating our children, educating our future. And it's not just a one thing, or one person, it's a group educating that whole child. I too fall somewhere in the middle. I do like rewarding staff and the principals of turnaround campuses. I think that that's important because my understanding is that's something that happens usually at schools. If you have a big turnaround like that, you receive some type of incentive. So I would like to see that, especially with the weight that we've been putting on these improvement plans. I think that would be good. I like some of the other stipends as well. Again, wish I had a money tree, right, to cure some of this. I think we have to do something. I always fall with you have to do something because you don't want to lose what you have. And I'm always nervous, even though our staff has done a good job of sticking with us through these tough times, when I know, like you said, they effectively got pay decreases or pay cuts. I know that there's been a struggle to keep up with inflation, and I appreciate that, but the appreciation of words is only going to go so far. So I think we have to do something to show how much we value the staff that we have and that we want to retain them. So that's all I have.
Tim, always so appreciative of your work. It's always detailed, and I love all the options that you give us. I do have a couple of questions, especially around the stipends for the turnaround campus. How long do you get that stipend? If I'm a principal at an elementary campus and I turn that campus around and it's $20,000, I get that forever? Is it just for a year? Et cetera, and down that road.
So the thought would be, it would be across 2 years. So it's basically, if you get the 20,000, be 10 and 10, or 8, 4 and 4. The thought being that the work you put in really needs to start being sustainable for that campus. So 2 years, it probably takes about 2 years to get some stability behind those school improvement efforts. And then after 2 years, that it's no more.
Stipend goes away.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. And so thank you for that. And then the one thing I would say is that we're always reacting. We never get to be proactive up here. Every once in a while someone says, why don't you have a long-range plan for salaries? Well, it's because the legislature meets every 2 years and decides yet again what we have. One of the other things about 2027 is that the legislature, when they came back with this compensation plan, did not put an increase in for 27. They have in the past done a 2-year step, and this time they did not. So that's another reason that I'll be blunt, every penny that we save this year is going to have to go towards next year, the 26-27 budget. So those two things. I always find it interesting that the legislature likes to go against those with advanced degrees. You have to have an advanced degree for most of those positions that we talked about. And I find that interesting. amongst other things, that people with more education are not valued by our legislature in that way. I would like some more specificity around the stipends. I would like to understand more about the paras and what that looks like, because does that put us in a situation that we're just chasing our tails? Because, I mean, I don't agree with TEA's decision, but I can't chase my tail around TEA's decision because they were promised something by TEA. They weren't promised something by this board. They were promised something by TEA. So I would like to understand that a little bit more and exactly how that, what that effect is down the road. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you both, Ms. Cobb and Mr. Chafin, very much for the presentation. Next is proposed changes to CW Local. Ms. Bay.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Rapp. Before you, you have proposed track changes to board policy CW Local that's in your board book. As you know, in accordance with your board operating procedures, board policy requires 2 reads for actions, so tonight serves as your first read. The board policy committee did meet to review these changes to the policy, and I just serve as support to that committee, so I will kick it over to Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Ms. Bay. Yes, this proposed change was initiated by the naming committee, which Ms. Lasan is the chair of, what we tried to do as a part of the policy committee was to work to find a good balance between our current policy and additional specificity around some criteria and spaces and process for what naming of spaces looks like. So you will see those changes in board book, and we look forward to the second read in action.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Lasan.
Thank you so much to you and your committee, which was the 2 of you right there.
Yes, Ms. Prosnick and Ms. Sells.
And Ms. Bay, thank you. And so I want to thank you for sort of because we have some things that we want to do within the naming committee. I want to thank you for your, I don't want to say fast track because it's not exactly fast track, but you did meet rather quickly, and we thank you for that. And I have read through everything, and you know, you guys have done a great job and have even thought through some issues that we didn't bring up. And it's like things that could happen in the future you guys have addressed. And so you guys did a great job, and I thank you for that, and look forward to the time we vote on it.
Which will be next month. It'll come back. Anything else? Thank you so much for your work on this, Ms. Bay. Appreciate it. Next, district-wide intruder detection audit report findings. Mr. Garrett.
Good evening to you all. For the month of December, the TEA did conduct intruder detection audits at Creek Valley Middle School, Flower Mound Elementary School, Forest Vista Elementary School, Hedrick Middle School, Lewisville Learning Center, Mill Street Elementary, Rockbrook Elementary, and the Colony High School. Any corrective actions have already been completed, and we'll be back next month for the January audits.
Any comments or questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Garrett. Next up are action items. Consider approval of the 2026-27 school start times. Dr. Rapp.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. At the Monday night's work session, we provided information as a follow-up to what had been part of the calendar discussion. Prior to Monday night's work session, you all had asked when the calendar came up about considerations on school start time order. And of course, we know last year there was a lot of conversation around the calendar related to the potential of adding additional minutes to the school day. And there was a lot of very robust conversation related to related to that conversation. And then what changed this year as TEA continues to change their requirements is that if you do not have enough minutes banked, as we talked with you all about at the work session, and you run into some kind of emergency situation, you could find yourself with a small number of campuses having to bring them back on a day when everybody else is not there, or extend the length of the school year just for those number of schools. So we see multiple districts addressing that and being sure that they have banked enough minutes to address emergencies by adding anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And we knew from last year, Dr. Miller presented, that we have one of the shortest instructional days amongst other districts like us at 435 minutes. The other thing that we are unique in as well is that the majority of our districts around us do their school start times in the order of elementary, middle, and high. So a common question that many of us face out on the road is, why are we in the order of elementary, high, middle? There's good reasons around all of the different orders that you can choose. And so what I committed to the board was, could we have an opportunity to put a survey out there to our community? We had over 5,000 responses to that survey. We presented that data to you all Monday night at the work session. And we saw, of course, the breakdown between elementary, middle, and high school feedback. And so with that being said, we've presented the data and provided the information around the feedback from our community. And so, Ms. Prosnick, with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Any questions or comments before we move on? Ms. Lasan.
I would like to propose that we separate this issue into 2 votes, that we separate it such that we vote on the instructional, increasing the instructional day by 10 minutes as one vote, and that we do the other one where we vote to change the start times in another, so we would have 2 motions.
Is there any objection by a board member? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the board extend the instructional day by 10 minutes for the 2026-27 school year.
Is there a second? Ms. Lopez? Any questions or discussion? Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. We had a very robust conversation, as Dr. Rapp put it, when we discussed the calendar the first time. And one of the biggest priorities that I had at that time was staff planning time. As a reminder, we can count professional learning minutes as a part of the calendar. We cannot count independent planning time as a part of those minutes. And the number one request that we get from teachers, we would love to pay them more, but even more than pay, our teachers want time. So while yes, these extra 10 minutes allow a safeguard for the kinds of things that Dr. Rapp mentioned, the selling point for me was additional planning time for our staff members.
I would say I agree with that, Dr. Barker. I think it also will allow for some flexibility throughout the day, especially when we have, I'll call it pep rally schedule at our high schools. But I think we'll also allow for some advisory time at our middle schools, and maybe an extra bathroom break or a few more extra minutes out on the playground for our elementary students. So, a motion on the floor to move that the board extend the instructional day by 10 minutes for the 2026 school year by Dr. Barker, a second by Ms. Lopez. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. That carries 7-0. Does someone have a second motion?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Lasan.
I move that the board maintain the current school start and end times for the 26-27 school year as they are currently scheduled.
Is there a second? Dr. Taylor. Any comments?
I have a statement.
Ms. Lasan?
I typed this out so that I wouldn't forget anything I wanted to say. Last Tuesday night at the board workshop, we discussed the possibility of changing the school start times of high school and middle school. The very next day, I began receiving feedback from constituents on this issue. All of them were against it for many different reasons, and each was valid in my opinion. Some of the reasons included sharing building space across programs, such as fine arts and athletics, students not being able to get to jobs after school, concern about high school students who take care of younger siblings after school, just to name a few. As I may have mentioned once or twice, I'm a proud Marcus Band mom. And as a board member, it is my job to look at the effects of our decisions on the entire district, not just one group. However, if we just use marching bands in the district as an example, the effects of this change would be detrimental to these programs. We have 5 outstanding marching band programs in our district, 3 of which are state UIL finalists every year. The LISD high school band program has over 1,000 students, probably closer to 1,500, across all 5 high schools. The amount of time, effort, and coordination that it takes to get the band program to run in the high-achieving way that they do now is mind-blowing. I'm going to pause from my written remarks and quote Mr. Waite. Is that the right name, I believe? What he said in his comments is pretty much identical and highly accurate to what goes on in the Marcus Band program. And this is just one of our many wonderful award-winning programs across the district. And by that I mean extracurricular programs. I would argue that changing school start times would not benefit any of our extracurricular programs in high school. Over the past year or two as a board, we have had to make some very tough decisions that have affected our staff, students, and families. All of the changes that we have made to this point have been for budgetary reasons, and although they were hard, they were necessary. Changing school start times is not one of these reasons. In a time where we're asking a lot of our constituents, why should we disrupt one group for the sake of another? Changing start times would not be just a minor disruption. It would be a major difference in how high school programs do business. And as many high school programs have a trickle-down effect all over the district, I believe that this change could have negative consequences across the district. One person I spoke with asked me what the educational benefit of this change would be, and I really couldn't provide him an answer. Would changing the school start times make life a little easier for our middle school teachers? Possibly, but after some of my conversations this week, I believe that there are other changes that they would rather have. And so I would implore us to look at other things that we could do for them that would not negatively impact other groups. And so for this reason, I do not support changing the current school start times. And I would implore my fellow board members to not support it either. Thank you.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I will admit that, yes, many of the emails that we got coming in were against this decision. And so as firm as I was last week, I really started to question some things. So I started to do some digging, and the majority of districts across the state go elementary, middle, high. Many of those that don't are high growth districts, and we're not one of those. And believe me, I understand the high school concerns of an extracurricular impact, and especially instructional time in that 4th period. My daughter's a water polo player. I get it. She, beginning of the year, first week of school, she had a tournament on Thursday, Friday, and was out of class. I get it. I understand that. One of the reasons I believe that we got so many responses was from the high school was because it would drastically change the high school, but I had to go back to our survey and the middle school responses, because one thing that happens is if you're considering a change in the positive for a particular subset, they're not usually going to be the ones to reach out to you with their feedback. So I had to go to the open-ended responses within the survey. And for every concern that we had on the high school side, we also had concerns on the middle school side that were requesting this change. including, and I know it was brought up before, early morning safety and security of our students who are dropped off early. There tend to be more options in terms of after school for those students rather than in the morning. Also, our middle schools have been the most affected by busing challenges. And when you have away games, if the high school is the last school, those buses are then not needed for the middle school route. So that can free up those buses for some of that transportation post-day. So I mean, this is going to come down to the wire for me because I hear it. I hear all of those concerns, but I'm also looking at those middle school concerns. And they're two big priorities of mine: instructional time on the one hand and safety and security of our students on the other. I get it. It's a tough decision.
Dr. Taylor?
So I thought about this because we did have a little round table at the work session, and I was in favor of changing the start time. And I just thought it made sense logically that elementary, middle school, high school, the younger you were, the earlier you got out of school. I was also concerned about safety and security and that sixth graders were being dropped off early, and school wasn't going to start to 8:55, and maybe they're dropped off at 7:45. And, you know, at one of my own schools, there was communication saying nobody's going to be there, make sure you don't drop your kids off, but it was still happening. So I think that made me think, it just makes sense logically that your older kids, you know, they have more flexibility, most, you know, some of them are driving, that it's a good decision. But then, again, with having a bunch of constituents reach out with some things that I had not thought about, it gave me pause on if it was the right time to make a decision, you know, had we done enough legwork for how everything would work, and I'm just not sure. So in a period of having unreadiness, I'm always inclined to keep things the way that they are. I guess the accountant in me that likes, you know, structure and things to be the way that they are. I think when I was trying to take notes on why I would support keeping the schedules as is, I did look at after-school activities, and I thought about my daughter, since everybody's sharing, she plays basketball for LHS, and she's on the golf team. And so just thinking about games that start at 4:30, depending on, you know, what team you're on, and transportation issues that, you know, LHS probably feels more than others because they have a triad where kids are going back and forth between 3 schools. What does that look like now that, you know, it's late? What times will they be getting home? Also, LHS, you know, and the colony, and I probably know LHS more intimately, so which is why I reference them just from a cost standpoint and resources and poverty affecting that school more than the others. Do you run the risk of having kids who can't participate now because times have changed and they don't have transportation to get back and forth? I also thought about less time for part-time jobs. I know plenty of students that work part-time jobs that, you know, want to be there at 4:30 or 5, and they can make those schedules with the time that it is now. Kids that volunteer. I thought about missed instructional time, which again, I see more intimately in the triad because of the way they're already being bussed around. What does that look like? And I guess, again, feeling unreadiness, understanding what the constituents came back and said, and really not wanting to vote for this change. So just wanted to provide some background on where I was and reserve the right to change my mind with new information.
Ms. Alcatem?
Thank you.
So I was one of the people on board who said, hey, let's take a look at this and look into it. My biggest reason for asking for it to be looked into was the safety and security of our middle school students. I drive by 3 middle school campuses every single day. And every single day, we have multiple students who are sitting outside of that campus, unattended, not looked at, and if weather is an issue. One day in particular, I went and I parked in the parking lot and counted, 42 students were sitting outside of a campus, not under the covering, and there was a big lightning storm going on. And so that was a concern to me because middle school kiddos, they can't drive to campus. And a lot of those parents would go straight from elementary, dropping them off because they have to get to work. And so that is the biggest reason that I wanted it looked into and asked, and the survey given to ask parents, what are your thoughts around it? I have read every survey result that came in. I have looked at every single thing that parents were saying. And like Dr. Barker mentioned, for every positive, there was a negative. For every negative, there was a positive. And I understand it. I have been a parent of elementary, middle, and high. I get kids having the loss of instructional time because of an extracurricular. All of my kids are big athletes, and they play it year-round. My kids are sometimes leaving class, second period, third period, sometimes first period, fourth period. And so they're losing that instructional time to meet the needs of their competitions and their games. So I understand what's coming with it. I have spoken to numerous parents, constituents, especially band parents, because that's who we're hearing the most from, to be honest with you, in the last week is a lot of band parents. I even went to Ms. Lasan, who I know is a band parent and a fellow board member. I said, okay, talk me through band. What does it look like in the afternoon? What is the impact if we do or don't do? What is it? Just walk me through a day. I definitely understand those concerns, and it is something that is weighing heavily on my mind. And my biggest concern is our kiddos who have jobs after school. That's where yes, instructional time, safety, security, but the other thing is those kiddos who do rely on their jobs after school. And, then I'll talk to some people and they'll be like, is 30 minutes a big deal? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how that job impacts their family and what it's required of them. So definitely, it's one of those things where you have to look at what is important for our students, and yes, instructional time, but also the safety and security. And unfortunately, we can't ask our middle school teachers to come in earlier to man those students who might get dropped off earlier, like having 1 or 2, because that's a cost. And we're already going through budgetary cuts and this and that, and we don't have the extra funds for those cuts, for that cost. And these are the things that have been weighing heavily on me this past week as I'm listening to people, I'm having those conversations, I'm doing my research and thinking through it as we go into this.
Ms. Lopez.
Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you to our community for all of the feedback. Just like every board member up here, I took the time to read all of the survey answers and all of the emails. And I just want to reiterate that there are good reasons for changing it. There are good reasons for keeping it. And so, just like Ms. Alcatib said, I've been weighing as many considerations as possible, weighing every side, and there are positives and negatives to both. And I see both sides. And so I just want to say thank you to the community for caring to take the time to give us your feedback, because we want to listen and we appreciate your perspective. I am deciphering my chicken scratch notes, so forgive me if I'm taking a moment to read these. On top of it being a difficult decision because there are so many pros and cons to both sides, I want to just reiterate the fact that safety and security is usually and should always be the number one, not only our focus, but something that we take into account regularly as we are making our decisions. And so safety and security and the health and well-being of our students is my primary focus. One of the things that was brought up during our work session is that by changing the schedules, we would be aligning some of the scientific research on sleep for adolescents with our schedules. And so this would take into account the fact that our high school students tend to do better academically. The research has proven this. They tend to do better academically and better in their fine arts and all of their extracurriculars when there is a later start date. And I think the fact that, like Dr. Barker spoke to, the majority of districts in the state of Texas follow an elementary, middle school, and then high school schedule. And I think that there is a reason behind that. Not only does the staggering make sense in terms of age, but the research supports that. And that speaks to the health and well-being, but I think the safety aspects that Ms. Al-Khatib just shared are paramount. I spoke to an officer who said, absolutely, if there are students out there unattended, unsupervised, of course there is a risk, and I don't think that that's something that I'm willing to play with. And of course, there were parents who brought up safety and health concerns on the other side, that bus routes changing, students walking across roads with more traffic. I understand that, but I think that our high schoolers have more flexibility in terms of their schedules. Many of our senior students have first or fourth off, and so they're able to get to schools at different times. They're able to go work at different times. Those older students just tend to have more flexibility as opposed to our middle school students. I also want to mention that the concerns that simply pushing the start time earlier for middle school students just switches the burden to after school, where parents now don't know what to do with their students in the afternoon in terms of pickup, or what do we do then. But I also want to say that our after-school programs do help to mitigate that, and I think that we should take that into account. So between the health and safety and the security concerns, and the fact that our high schoolers tend to have more flexibility because they can drive or they have friends who can drive, I think that it's a tough decision, but I want to make sure I'm taking into account the safety and security first and foremost.
Ms. Sells? Oh, Ms. Al-Khatib.
Sorry, I just remembered one more thing, and I totally forgot to mention it, because it is an important group of people that I also spoke to, and that is our crossing guards. We have multiple crossing guards across our district that serve elementary, and then they go over to middle school. And if we do change those times, that is something that I've also been thinking very heavily on this week, is how would that impact, especially because we work with our city municipalities and our townships and getting those covered. And so we would definitely have to be bridging that connection to make sure that, going back with safety and security, that all of our students are safe and secure crossing those busy roads. That's what reminded me. Thank you.
Ms. Sells?
Well, in my 10 years of being on this board, there's one thing that's consistent every year. And I start getting those emails at the beginning of the year, and they don't end until the end, and that is the drop-off times for middle school students. I get more emails about that throughout the year, personally, phone calls, personal text, and I too have driven by many of our middle schools early as 7:20 is the earliest that I went up and sat and saw a child being dropped off at 7:20 for an 8:55 start. And although we opened the doors a little bit earlier, that child sat there for over an hour. And I will tell you, I wish our world was a different world, but it's not. And I'm thankful and I feel blessed that we haven't had any incidents up till now. But I will tell you, I was one of those kids that was dropped off early in my middle school years. And you know what I did? I walked off campus. I went to friends' houses. And I think back to that and how I don't realize how I stayed safe. I will. I was a little spitfire. And I just did it. And so that is the one thing. The other thing, and I said this over in the workshop the other day, and let me tell you, the concerns of the band, I get it. I love the band. I've spent my own money 2 out of the last 3 years to go watch me in competition. Drive down there, I pay for a hotel, and I watch. I'm proud. I'm super proud of the band programs in this district. But it comes back to that. And I said the other night in the workshop, back in, I think it was 2017, we went to Las Vegas for the National PTA Convention. It was the first time I'd heard a young man, and he came and he talked about the school districts that were there that were not providing an elementary, middle, and high school start time. I went back to my notes. If you know me, you know I keep my notes. I have them in a drawer of all the things I went to. And these were some of his, and I researched them today, and they're still true. High schools, starting high school later than elementary and middle schools, has several well-documented benefits, especially for adolescents' development, health, and learning. Biologically, starting later for a teen is a more natural circadian rhythms for their biological and development benefit. It allows most high school students to get the recommended 8 hours of sleep. And then with that improved brain function, adequate sleep supports memory, attention, decision-making, and emotional regulation. The academics benefit. Schools with later start times often report fewer absences and tardies. What I have learned, and especially in our LHS feeder pattern, is when my mentees have gotten up late, they just don't go to school. They just decide to take the day off. And so if it's a matter of them having a little bit later time to get to school, I look back and I think that my mentees would have had a greater attendance record. And I think that they would have had greater success in their graduation. Higher graduation rates in those with high schools that start late. The mental health, because there is a decrease, because you're waking them up at a time that's not natural for them. And once again, I get our extracurriculars. But I'm elected to look at the entire district. And that's what I have to fall back on. The safety benefits, I had 2 kids that drove to Hebron. I will tell you, I would bank on the afternoon more than that morning any day. Because people getting to work is a little bit different than them getting home. And I will tell you, most of the accidents occurred right outside my subdivision in the morning, not the afternoons. And they were not students, they were adults who were rushing to get to work. But when my student needed to leave at 7:10 or 7:15 in the middle of rush hour, it was harder for them, and it's only going to get worse in my area because of the traffic that is just going to continue to increase. I really think that it levels the playing field. And once again, I love our band programs. I love our extracurricular programs. I love our sports programs. But I have to, once again, look at the entire population of this district. And so I believe at the key takeaways from my notes, from what he said and the research that I've done, I believe that starting high school later than elementary and middle supports adolescents' health, the safety of all populations, and academic success while still meeting the development needs of younger students. The younger students, elementary, their circadian, however you say that, their patterns, they wake up early. Anybody who has had little kids know that.
Unfortunately.
You want to sleep in, and they've got you up, wanting to go do everything else. So this once again is not an easy decision. And many things that we do up here, sometimes it's more black and white, but this is so gray. But I have to go back that I was elected to serve the entire population. And my experience with my mentee, I believe that this would have benefited them. So I have to think, who's more important? And nobody's more important, and there's benefits to both. but this is something that we have not discussed here, but it's something that we get feedback from every year. And I think sometimes there's no good time to make a decision like this. There isn't, so we just kick the can down the road. And so, once again, it's not an easy decision, so.
I have a couple questions. Mr. Kaj, we know what transportation looks like now with the current start times that we have. What would the proposed change start times look like for transportation? I know you had talked about a bell curve or something along those lines.
Through our research, through our third-party vendor that we had before, and then as we were looking to take the transportation in-house, the ideal, the industry standard is to have your largest level first, and then your smallest level second, and then going back out for your next largest, which would be, the third. So currently, as we sit right now, as of this month, there's 180 elementary school routes, which would be the first tier. Then following up with a middle school routes, which would be 120 routes. And then the final tier would be the high school routes of 142. So there's that dumbbell shape there. The LISD has some advantages. Our neighborhood school systems, so without turning it loose to the research team and to the routing team to start planning it. But basically, the key data that we always took away from it is that you really want that dumbbell shaped with your routes and your tiered system.
So changing the school start times could improve our transportation efficiency?
Without diving in it and rerouting everything, but based on information and the discussions that we've had, there's a potential that it could, but without.
I know we didn't have you do any. I know we didn't have like you do any schematics, but this would mimic what is considered industry. I'm going to say gold, but the industry standard that's the most efficient way to do a bus routing system.
And that's what we've been told about a three-tiered system.
About a three-tiered system.
And one
Dr.
comment for that, Ms. Prosnick, I don't tend to forecast what other school districts do exactly, but that's probably one of the reasons as transportation got more complicated and more districts also started having to triple route, you would see that smaller number of routes there, at the, basically, you got it there at the end, I think, Jeff, with what you said.
The smaller number of routes is right in the middle.
So I would imagine that triple routing has impacted all of these decisions about the order of school start times. As you all said, this is extremely complex. When I first came to the district in 1996, all the schools started at the same time. And that's one of the questions we get a lot, is could we just go back to that approach? And of course, when you triple route your buses, that's not possible. The other thing I've heard out there is, well, could we do what's best for teens and their sleep and have both middle and high schools start at the same time? And again, once you triple route those buses, that's not a possibility. But for sure, I believe triple routing of buses and transportation has been a common reason that you see the school start time orders the way that they are.
And triple routing is a budget decision.
Yes, in 2010, when that, in 2010, when the order was, it was established elementary, high, middle, at that time, that was based on the transportation, and prior to that, the triple routing was based on transportation. So it's complex. At that time, it depended on the vendor that we use. Now we don't have to worry about the vendor contracts, and of course, we are getting savings from that, so we're able to adjust things ourselves. But triple routing of buses is absolutely a financial decision, and we have to do that. We couldn't afford to go back to any other way.
I'm not going to belabor and reiterate some of the things that my colleagues have said, except to say that for me, this has always been about middle school. And it has always been about kids sitting outside in the elements. And it has also been about after school for middle school. I live in part of the district where even if I was there the moment my kid got out, we couldn't make an after-school activity because it took too long to get home because we got out later than the other adjacent district in my area did. And so those students in some areas are denied the opportunity to do an after-school activity in middle school. I'm going to say this about band kids. I always say that band kids are the hardest working kids we have in this district. I also know if you have any issues with time management, a band kid can figure it out for you. And their director can really figure it out for you. I am confident that if school start times changed, that they would make those adjustments, that students would adjust. Someone recently said that change is not met with a hug. It is usually met with resistance, and then you adapt. I believe in growth, and I believe in change, and sometimes that change needs to be forced. And maybe we need to force how we're doing some of those things. And maybe if school start times do change, that would do that. It is not going to affect the amazing things that our kids do, not just in band, but in athletics. That is due to our accelerated block schedule. Don't fool yourself that it's about what time we start school. It's about our accelerated block schedule. That is one of the things that gives our kids that really good basis in all of those activities, not just band, in athletics and fine arts, but in other areas as well. The one thing that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to belabor points that have already been made. Ms. Lasan, I do need you to reread your motion. I need you to add, after maintain the current order of school start time and end times, you need to add order of after current. If you could reread your motion, and I'll ask for the second, and then I will call for the vote.
Okay, tell me if I do this wrong. I move that the board maintain the current order of school start and end times for the 26-27 school year as they are currently scheduled.
Ms. Taylor, you second. All those in favor? That is Ms. Lasan and Ms. Taylor. Opposed? That is Ms. Lopez, Ms. Alcatab, Ms. Sells, Mrs. Prosnick, and Dr. Barker. Motion fails 5-2. Is there another motion on the table? Dr. Barker? Oh. I'm looking this way because I always get accused of not, so Ms. Alcatab.
I was looking to see what the motion is. I move that the board approve the new school start and end times for the 2026-27 school year, including the revised order of start times across elementary, middle, and high school levels, as recommended by administration.
Is there a second? Ms. Lopez. All those in favor? Oh, absolutely. I'm so sorry. You are absolutely correct, Ms. Alcatab.
I just want to make a comment real fast. I just want to make it very clear, this is not putting one group of students over another group of students. It is purely looking at it from a district standpoint across the districts, safety and security, and knowing that our students are already thriving with the block schedules and the instructional time in going with that. So I just want to make that very clear.
I'm sorry, are there any other discussion? All those in favor? That is Ms. Lopez, Ms. Alcatab, Ms. Sells, Mrs. Prosnick, and Dr. Barker. Opposed? And that is Ms. Lasan and Dr. Taylor. Motion carries 5-2. Next is to consider approval of naming Maverick Way at Memorial Elementary. Ms. Lasan.
Okay, so as we discussed last week, we had a request on the naming committee to change well, really, if you think about it, to actually name the private drive in front of Memorial Elementary, one of our newer campuses in the district. And so that request came from the campus and was approved by the naming committee to change the name to, from Elam School to be renamed Maverick Way.
Are there any comments, questions? Anybody else from the committee want to speak? All right. Would someone like to make a motion? Oh, did you make the motion? Oh, Dr. Taylor?
Madam President, I move that the board approve naming the private street in front of Memorial Elementary, currently known as Elam School, be renamed Maverick Way as recommended by the Facility Naming Committee.
Is there a second? Dr. Barker? I will say I'm going to enjoy not turning right at Elam School to get in, so. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. The vote carries 7-0. Next on the agenda is to consider approval of a resolution naming one candidate to serve on the Denton Central Appraisal District of Directors for Place 5, as that person has resigned. No action is going to be taken at this time as we did not receive anybody who wanted a nomination to serve on the Denton County Appraisal District. Those nominations are due by the end of January, and at that time, we will then have an opportunity as a board to cast our votes for those wishing to seek to serve on the Denton Central Appraisal District. And with that, if there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is 8:59 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.